All right. Congressman John Garamendi from California, thanks for appearing on the UpTake. What brings you to Netroots?
A burning desire to stay on top of the most modern communications that you could possibly find. Netroots is the way. If you want to communicate to the new media, this is where you do it. And it's all here. Everything from Twitter and tweets to blogs and Facebook and on and on.
You'll be speaking at a panel later this afternoon. Tell us about what and what do you have to say?
It's a panel on the Afghanistan war. It's time for us to pivot on the success of bin Laden, change our strategy, focus on terrorism wherever it is, and get the boots off the ground in Afghanistan. Bring the troops home. We leave a little piece there to deal with the terrorism, but we're blowing $120 billion a year, and much more importantly, the lives of hundreds of Americans and the wounding of even thousands.
Does the killing of Osama bin Laden change this picture completely, or was this a need that had to happen anyway?
It changes it completely in the sense of the dynamics, in the sense of the war on terrorism, an important event, but it doesn't eliminate terrorism. So in one way, yes, it does change things in that it gives us a chance to refocus on the real task, which is the terrorists, wherever they are. They're in Yemen and Somalia and the United States, so we need to focus on that, not nation building in Afghanistan, trying to build a modern nation that didn't exist and isn't likely to exist for many, many generations.
And to what extent is that understood by the administration, or do they have some understanding yet to do?
I think they're getting the message. Those of us in Congress that have been saying it's time to end this war, it's time to change our strategy, back to what we originally wanted to do, which was to go after terrorists. And then George W. Bush changed it with the Iraq war, and unfortunately, I think the president took the wrong strategy. Instead of focusing, as Vice President Biden wanted to do on the terrorists, focused on nation building. But we're going to get back at it. 204 members of Congress voted that way a couple of weeks ago, and next week we take up the appropriations for defense, and we're going to put forward an amendment that says no more money. The way we're going, we're going to bring that appropriation down. Will we succeed? We're going to get a lot of support, and hopefully that'll encourage the president to do what I think we must do.
I asked Governor Howard Dean last night how the progressive movement, how citizens, how bloggers and media folks here counterbalance or counterweigh the voice of David Petraeus and the voice of the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex, how they counterbalance what they're saying to Obama in terms of the need to continue in Afghanistan. How do we counterbalance that?
Well, we do it in three different ways. One, in Congress, where if he doesn't have money, he's not going to do the war. So that's one place right there. We make the point, we make the argument. The public will begin to, public already out there, but they'll begin to see, well, maybe we can be successful.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Power to the people.
Congressman, how do citizens, bloggers, progressive advocates counterbalance the voice in Barack Obama's ear, the voice coming from the military-industrial complex from David Petraeus?
Well, I think there's three ways. First of all, those of us that are in Congress need to speak out, we need to act, we need to vote. That has weight, and that'll give support to the public out there that's way ahead. 70% plus want to end this war. And then they can start using the traditional media, phone calls, use the White House blog, website, register their ideas there, and then what's going on here. The whole Netroots, bloggers and tweets and on and on and on. All of those things need to be used. Into the White House, back and forth among the public, raising a ruckus, raising the voice of Americans in all of these mechanisms.
There seems to be a growing chorus among conservatives to end the war in Afghanistan as well. One could say it's a Ron Paul libertarian isolationist attitude. Do they really want the troops out of Afghanistan, or is it a way to counter Barack Obama's policy? And what do you make of that chorus?
I think it's legitimate for a variety of reasons. We're not going to exit the world. We're still the most important nation in the world economically and militarily, but we need to use that power as soft power, not just with military force, but rather soft power. But in the Congress, there's a legitimate concern about the cost of the war, $120 billion a year. Obviously, the deficit's on everybody's mind. One of the things you can do to solve the deficit in 3 years, $1/3 trillion if you ended this war. That's a lot of money. So that's part of what the conservatives have, and it's part of what we on the more progressive side are also concerned about. And finally, there are many of us that see the destruction that this has to America. The men and women that have died. I got off an airplane when I returned to California a month ago, and there was a coffin on the plane of a young woman that was killed in Afghanistan. She was a sergeant in the Air Force, and there was a ceremony as we got off the plane. I'm going, what was that all about? Why? And then you see the men and women that have been maimed physically, mentally as a result of this war. So all of these things come together, and those are legitimate on the progressive Democratic side, as well as on the conservative side, Tea Party, wherever. All of us share, I believe, that this is not going well. It's time to put this aside. It's time to focus on the terrorism and to move away from a policy that is extraordinarily destructive of American lives and our treasure.
If it's time to draw down, what do we do about Hamid Karzai and all the problems in the Afghan government? And what happens to the U.S.-Pakistani relationship?
Many of us believe, with justification and with some facts, that the Afghan-Pakistan relationship is made worse by our heavy footprint in Afghanistan. It is a destabilizing factor in Afghanistan. So as we reduce, we believe that there'd be a reduction in that destabilization in Afghanistan. The kind of concerns that the Afghan public has about America's role in Afghanistan would diminish. But we need to pay attention to Pakistan. It is very, very important in all of this. There's also the reality that never, ever has there been a strong central government in Afghanistan. There have been power sources in various parts of Afghanistan, ethnicity, tribal, religious, and economic centers of power in various communities and regions of Afghanistan. Those worked in coordination with the central government, but the real power always was in these various communities, and they're not going to go away. We have been trying to create a centralized government in a place where it is not the tradition, the culture, and the economic system of that area to have a strong centralized government. And so we need to undertake a different strategy. We need to understand the culture, the religious, the ethnicity, all of those issues, and the economic system that has existed there forever, and then work within that. And that's a negotiated settlement. That's where you bring the various parties together and you say, here's the American interest. No terrorism. Do we understand you? No terrorism. If there's terrorism, we're going to be here and we're going to knock it out. But we're not going to have a heavy footprint here. We will help you economically. We'll help with social economic development. You guys have to work this out. You export terrorism, you're going to find the might of America coming down on you real hard. That's not 100,000 troops, but that's a very targeted situation, and we need to have a better story to tell to the world. And we can only do that with less troops and a focused effort on terrorism.
So where do you stand on Libya and President Obama and NATO's actions there against Gaddafi?
Well, this is at least three different sides to this very difficult conundrum. First of all, I think we do have a responsibility to protect. We didn't in Rwanda, and we had a genocide. But we can't do it everywhere for a variety of reasons, but that's something that as America we have a responsibility, and we can affect that in many different ways. Secondly, there's the issue of war powers. Can the president unilaterally go to war without Congress? I don't think so. I'm a member of Congress, and I think the Constitution says it's Congress that declares war, not the president. War Powers Act gives some leeway here, and now the question is, did the president fulfill the War Power Act? So those are two sets of questions. The third question is, what are we trying to do in Afghanistan? Third question, right. What are we trying to do in Libya? It's not clear. We wanted to protect the people. I think that's worthy. And we've had some success at that. Now we're into regime change. And we're kind of going at that like half-hearted. So it's that lack of clarity of mission is one of the most dangerous things a military power can do, because you're kind of wandering back and forth and you'll find yourself stuck in the quicksand, or in this case, the sands of Libya.
Yeah. And of course, you know, if NATO does succeed in killing Gaddafi or forcing him out, the logical next question is, okay, Syria and others.
Well, we have a responsibility to protect. How do you do that? Right. And where do you do it, under what circumstances? Eisenhower in the 1950s said, don't get involved in a land war in Asia. And Gates, 2010, said, don't get involved in a land war in the Middle East. There's a reason for that. So we need to be very aware that there are limits to our power, but our power is not just military power. Our power is, let's use the word soft power. It's economic power, it's diplomacy, it's pulling together nations surrounding these regions, working together in concert. And in the Libya situation, we've done a lot of that. Have we done all that we should do? We need to do more, because we've taken it another step beyond protecting the people. And now we've got to finish this, and I would recommend soft power rather than a heavy military power.
Congressman, thanks so much for speaking with us. Enjoy your time at Netroots.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, excellent. All right. We're good.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Take care. It's a pleasure catching you down the road.
We'll do.